lovelies. This is Nisha M, your geek mom, coming to you with an episode of Doctor Who in Review. And we are joined tonight by the wonderful Marley B. Marcus and Louis Lacow. And we are going to be speaking this week about the focus on the season's companions, the successes, the story arcs, and what are we hoping to learn more about? Do you feel like we really got a good in-depth overview and an understanding of why these three characters were brought on to the show, and how relevant are these characters and their backstories to the growth of the Doctor? So, you guys excited?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we kind of decided we were going to go with a little bit of a different perspective on how we talk about it today. I don't know, because everyone, I think that, like we've said in the past, because we all come from a little bit of a different cultural, social, perspective, it's good to be able to get our view on what we thought about the diversity, and what we thought about the, I guess, the friendships and the connectivity. So, who wants to start tonight?
Molly, let's start.
Oh, boy. Okay. On the spot. So, well, you caught me at the quick.
I did. See what we're like? Well, let's just go with this.
Yeah.
Let's just a poll straight up. How many of us really enjoy all three of the new companions? I do.
I do. I'm going to say yes, I enjoy all of them. I think we've mentioned this in previous episodes. I think there was some better character development needed for Yaz.
Oh, gosh.
I thought a lot of time was spent on Graham, especially. I mean, he's wonderful, don't get me wrong, but a lot of time was spent on him. Towards the end of the series, you get a little bit more on Ryan, but we're left wanting for Yaz. And we see a tiny glimmer of it in Punjab.
Yep. That's about it.
That's the only aspect that you actually really see Yaz's character. I think there's only one flushed out character fully, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's nothing on the companion itself. I think it's more on the storytelling, and I think we're going to get a lot of that in the next season, which is fine because there's a lot going on in the TARDIS this season, and there's more companions than we usually do. We only usually get one companion at a time that's really flushed out. The other one is just a sidekick, usually.
Yeah.
So we have three full companions. And
we had Bill and we had Nardole at the same time, and Nardole was a fully fleshed out character as we moved along, which was very interesting, but we didn't get them both at the same time.
We didn't.
We kind of did, actually.
But most of the episodes, you notice, if it's a focus on Nardole, then they focus in on him. If it's an episode with Bill, they focus in on Bill. He doesn't really come out. So
yeah, the only time we see them together is at the end when they're not really there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad. So like we were saying before, this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because I was trying to find a precedent for this, but this is the first time we fully have a new Doctor, a new TARDIS, and three full new companions. All at the exact same time, except for when the show started. I think so. I do think with Pertwee, we were treated to an entirely new show as well, which is extremely reminiscent of season 11.
Yeah, but even season 11 a little bit too. Even in season 11, it was the same thing. New showrunner, new TARDIS, because when the TARDIS blew up, that was a completely new TARDIS, and new Doctor, new companions. So it was like a fresh reboot there too.
So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like the first Doctor, of course, we had a new show with Pertwee. We had exactly. They needed to figure it out. BBC did, and they said, "Let's just go for the gusto," and they did. And here now we are in season 11. So, and of course with 9, when we get Eccleston. But we also didn't get three companions at the same time. We got 2. We got Rose and we got Jack right behind that. But even that was not a full-fledged companion. Nope. So in this particular situation, do you so I mean, keeping in the back of your mind, you don't have to answer it exactly like I asked it. The successes, the story arcs, what are we hoping to learn more about? I don't want to do favorites here. I love all three of the characters. Do you think that one character had a much stronger, successful story in terms of being a companion?
I think we all agree that Graham had the best character, and I personally really enjoyed him. But
no, everybody did.
Yeah. I mean, his revenge stuff and at the end there was predictable. Mm-hmm. And I think I would have. It was great to see that he went, being the better person there. But we know deep down inside he didn't want to do that. And it would have been interesting to see if he hadn't controlled himself, if he had just went out and just killed Tim Shaw. It would have been interesting.
I would have liked to see that, honestly. I would have liked to see his character, because let's be real, most people would have done that. And I would have liked to see what the Doctor would have done as a repercussion for doing that. How would the Doctor handle basically trying to teach Graham how to be? Mm-hmm. I would have
the Doctor has a pretty steadfast rules about violence.
Yeah.
And when it's committed in any intentional way.
Right. But see, had like, here, just like follow me along with this for a second. If Graham had committed that act, would the Doctor then have said, sorry, you can't be a companion anymore?
Yeah.
Most likely, probably yes.
Yeah.
Which would completely change the story arc. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do think that Graham really was, because now we've really jumped all the way ahead, because we're in, this is the Battle of Rats on Skor. And we're talking about the second to last, technically, episode. Do you think at this point that while we're bringing Graham and Ryan's story gets to be brought around full circle-ish, again, fingers in quotes here, do you think that Graham is self-aware enough to know that if he did it, that he wouldn't be able to continue as part of Team TARDIS?
I don't think he would care. When somebody sees red, they see red, and the fact that Graham kind of stopped and took that moment to think and calm down and react from learning all the stuff that Graham's learned with the travels of the TARDIS and just his normal life, because this man is very intelligent. He's extremely intelligent, and he knows when he's wrong, which is one of the first things that you learn about Graham, is that he's willing to admit when he is incorrect and when he needs to correct his behavior. Because that's one of the things that he says that he loved about Grace, was that he was able to be himself and learn from it and learn to be a better man. Mm-hmm. Because Grace wasn't pushing it on him. She was trying to basically help him along the path. The Doctor's doing.
We're introduced to him when she was a nurse, right? An oncology nurse at that. Yeah. And we're introduced to him finding out that he had been on the brink of death because of his cancer. And he'd given into the presumption of his dying. And so he had almost given up on his life. And as he said, Grace gave him back something to hope for, something to believe in. And I also think that that the TARDIS and the Doctor is very symbolic of that, something to believe in. Mm-hmm. So I think that for me, it occurred to me that one of the reasons he didn't let revenge wash over him is because I have something to believe in here. I have something to live for, and now I have a grandson. So I need to stem my revenge, and I need to look at the bigger picture. So that's the story I took away from it. You know what I'm saying? Looking at I
agree with you.
Yeah. So let's. On an average, I would say that throughout the season that Graham is a very successful story as a companion. Yeah. And I do feel like he is the most fully fleshed out, even of course from the Doctor, because there's so many questions with the Doctor. I just don't think that we even got a slight answer for, but I'm hoping we will with the next season. So we all want to see Graham back, or no?
Oh yes, I do.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think he's going to play a Ben Kenobi role more than anything else. that watchful grandfather from far away. I don't think he's going to be on the TARDIS. I think the next roles is going to be Ryan and Yaz only.
Which I think is not. I think that's inappropriate. Yeah, I think it's appropriate. There is a time for everything to happen.
Yeah.
This season, we were introduced to so many characters. And
so many characters.
Yeah, no, God, I'm telling you. I was like, man, there were some really cool ones that could have really,
Am I watching Doctor Who or Walking Dead, or Game of Thrones?
Right.
Like, all right, are we going that way?
Yeah, I know we've talked about that, the story of the villain, but so we got introduced to the three staple companions, but did you notice that we every episode we kind of had another one add in, but then of course they were either killed off or they kind of like their story was resolved. You know what I'm saying? Like there was always someone whose dynamic got added into everything that was going on.
What highlights for you were some of those secondary companions?
I'm going to say Kerblam, because Kerblam really gave us 4 very strong characters. That
I love the villain in that episode, not the companion.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't mind that at all. I just thought it was interesting that we got these very strong characters, and then we're like, are we ever seeing them again? I would like to see them again. I thought they were pretty cool, And I'm talking about the people who were running Kerblam, basically, the people. And I felt like in the last episode, the battle, I was very interested in the 2 I forgot their names. Oh my God. There's always 2 of them. I forgot their names right this moment. But
the last episode.
They're very interesting characters.
I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name. Moving on.
So I'll think of it right now. Oh gosh, that's crazy. But I'm just saying, there were just so many people that come to your mind, and I was like, okay, I would love to meet them. But I wanted to know how much more our regular characters, our regular companions, were going to interact with them. And I don't really feel that we really got the wealth of of those interactions. So, like, it's always a glossing over.
Yep.
So the most that we get is going to be Ryan and Graham. And again, everyone can agree that we barely have, Yaz, even though she's there and she's interpretive and she's part of the whole mechanics. Do we really get to understand? Does she really get to put her feet down on the ground?
I think the great thing.
So.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Molly.
Well, I just think it's really grossly unfair, right? You're part of this show, and you see all of your other fellow actors getting all these juicy things. You have to wonder if she's like, well, when is it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it would leave me feeling very unsatisfied as an actor, as a character. So I do hope that in 2020, when they do the second year of this particular Doctor, that they don't just placate it with, oh, here's it's focused type thing, right? I really want them to see, if they really are going to dive into these characters, they need to give equal love to each one of these companions, not just focus on the favorite child, which appears to be Graham right now, which is not, a horrible thing, but it's like it leaves it lacking, I feel.
I think it's an interesting thing what they did in this season. Looking back in retrospect of what they did this season, they left 3 different companions that are identifiable to the grand majority of people that watch this show. So
that's very true.
You're allowed to build and fill in the gaps with these characters. Perfect example. I didn't see a lot of character building and a lot of character, period, for the actual persona of Yaz. Yet Nisha and Joe have both presented to me that, yes, look at all these things. And they go into a laundry list of things. And I was like, wow, I didn't catch that. And the person I associate with was Graham because of the grandfather figure. I see him as a grandfather figure for me. So it's very interesting seeing that in retrospective.
It's a very strong personal connection for you, and in the same way, we have that strong personal connection with Yaz,
yeah.
because for the first time in the history of the show, we are given not just a bypassing character who's of the Asian persuasion, but an actual storyline and a story arc. And by the way, I just want to say I keep forgetting it's the Battle of Ranskor of Kolos, because my God, that thing's a tongue twister. Sorry, fan.
Yeah.
Every time I say it wrong. So that's great points. I really want to explore that a little bit further. Do you feel what more could they, I mean, because we talked about this with Ryan. Let's go back to him a little bit later. What more could we have done? Okay, so what do you guys think they did successfully for the three characters? So we talked about Graham, but there's more to Graham that was successful for right now. So what do you think that they did successfully with Ryan and with Yaz?
Well, with Ryan, we dealt with his dad and some of the unsolved things that we had in the beginning with him. He overcomes a lot of his challenges. With Yaz, we did see the glimmer of the stuff in Punjab and even in the Arachnids too, because there's glimmers of her there as well. I think that they showed, for instance, that Yaz has a lot of gumption and is very gutsy and is willing to take risks more so than Ryan. Ryan doesn't really start taking risks till towards the end of the season, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I agree 100%. The only thing is, I think and I don't want to beat a dead horse. We've already had this conversation before. I think a lot of it goes in part to very bad writing in the episodes, and we don't see a real flushing out of the characters. But like I said before, seeing it in retrospective, I think the identifiability of these characters kind of gives a little unfair advantage to these companions more so than any other that we've had before, because it kind of gives you a wide spectrum of people that could associate with these companions, and you kind of instill your own beliefs into those characters.
There you
which
go.
Is either genius or just completely overlooked and it just happened by coincidence.
I don't think it happened by coincidence. It's actually, and that's such a good point. I was kind of hoping if someone would come up with it, because Jo and I have had this conversation, and she feels, and she says it constantly, they're only 18 or 19. They're kids. Yeah. But they're kids in a different situation, in a different environment, who are trying to put their feet down and figure out what their life is in the first place. Yeah. And so identifiable. And you do realize that in Yaz's home, I'm going to take a step back here. And while the conversations with her family are very fleeting, they're extremely telling. You do realize that the mom's a successful person, the dad's a stay-at-home dad, right? It's a backward situation. And the sisters thinks a lot of herself. She has a very high self-esteem.
And for lack of a better word, sure.
Let's put it that way. I had to say it nicely, so hey. She's
I'm glad you said it and not me.
And she puts Yaz down all the time.
Yeah.
You realize that she bullies her, technically, right?
Yeah, she's a sociopath. Narcissist, sociopath.
Oh my God. Yes, Mr. Horror Man. That's, of course, the word you would use.
Like I said, at least you said it. You introduced it, not me.
I didn't say it unkindly, however. I just said she has an unusually high opinion of herself. There you go.
Sure. Okay, we'll go with that.
I mean, so we have a strong maternal and matriarchal precedent set between the nanny and the mother, and now we have her sister bullying her, and it's a quiet bullying, and all the way to the last, to when we're in Arachnids, and she goes out to go get, what was it, bread or something?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I'll go get it. I'll be back. In just a jiff. And meanwhile, she takes a look at them and looks back, and she's like, yeah, no, I'm cool. I'm going on with my life, because right in this moment, this is my life. I see that in her eyes as she walks out the door. So it's like, okay, cool. She's ready to walk away from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if a lot of people caught that or not. But is that's identifiable, like you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids, I'm not going on. I'm like supporting kids walking out the door. No, not at all. I do support people finding self-value enough to be able to self-accept, right?
Yeah.
So I
for
do
sure.
think we get that. So, okay, we've already covered a lot of the misses. Do you
But
feel
honestly,
that? No, go ahead.
I really enjoy the character of Ryan, the way that the character kind of builds, and you see the in very minor progressions, but you see the progression in the character. Now, I want to see him tackling the disease that he has, or the condition that he has, a little bit more, and see that incorporated into the aspects, not overly done, not as subtle as they're doing it now, where it's kind of very interpretive. And I want to see them be able to tackle that issue and bring that out, because that's a very important issue. And the fact that this character does have a disability, and I don't think that they addressed that appropriately in this episode, in this season, besides episodes 1. That's the only time that they addressed it appropriately, and I think that they could have done more, just a little bit more turmoil, a little bit harder to do things, that he stumbles a little bit more. I felt that it was too easy for him to do certain things, even though we know that he has the condition and he was able to accomplish those things. I don't think that there is enough turmoil to get to resolve those issues. But I love his character arc. I really do. I like the way that he progressed, and he was able to face his father and tell him that, look, I really despise you, but I love you at the same time. And that's very human. And I love that. And also the point that he progresses as a human, the same way that Graham does in this season. I think that you could see the doctor instilling her values, or the doctor's value rather, into the character, and you see the influence the doctor has had on Ryan's life throughout this season.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think it's the same thing for all the characters, honestly. I think all of them do. They do a good job of seeing the progression of characters. It's very subtle for Yaz and Ryan, but it's still there.
Well, Graham says it extremely openly at least 2 times, that, this is not normally who I would be, right? I would not normally be doing this. I'm just this guy. I'm just this bloke. And it comes up very often.
Well, Graham, I think when Grace, this is going to maybe come off a little harsh, but when Grace passed away, he found a replacement for Grace, not in a romantic sense, but in a motivational sense. And that was
I don't think he found a replacement. No, I mean, but maybe he found something to fill a void for the moment while he was trying to figure out what his grief was.
Yeah, I would say it was more filling a void, because he does an awful lot of lecturing and an awful lot of passive behavior with Ryan up until when Ryan finally calls him Gramps.
Yeah. I agree. His grief and Ryan's grief is a lot of where they've put the progression of Ryan to be able to take hold of the dyspraxia and to be able to. And it wasn't about overcoming the disease, because it's a neurologic disorder. It's what you have. It's not one that goes away, right?
Right.
So to be able to face it and to face the fear, I think I've had this talk with you about it, Lewis.
Yes.
Is what we actually needed to see happen. So you're looking for, and we're looking at disease in 2 different places, because we're looking at Graham's having overcome the cancer and beat the cancer and now having life, and then we're looking at Ryan having a neurologic disorder that was his deterrent and his inhibitor and his fear, and the thing that kept him from being able to believe in himself. being part of Team TARDIS and being with the Doctor and just acting, sometimes compulsively and autonomically, I believe, disengages the Fair so that he is able to then act and do in a way that he has never been able to. And it's in the very first scene when they're riding the bike and Grace says to him, one day you will do it because you're doing it.
Right.
And you'll stop thinking about it.
I just had like the oddest epiphany when you were talking, Nisha. What if Graham's original cancer solved and by, you know, his coming over it, but his new cancer is Tim Shaw.
Nice.
Right? So you have this Tim Shaw who takes away Grace.
Yeah.
But he feels as if this being is like a cancer to him and eats at him, right? It eats at him and eats at him and eats at him. You know? So in some ways, I kind of, it might be a stretch, but I don't know. It just came to me.
No. It's absolutely, but that's part of the grief spectrum.
Yeah.
But that's so funny because I was thinking about that was really cool. I love that we're coming up with these concepts because you see what I was saying about Ryan, about the fact that he's living through his grief and also filling a void, that he's learning to just adapt, become flexible, and act autonomically according to what his nervous system is telling him to do. Like, he's trusting it where he's never trusted it before. See what I'm saying? So
I see where he's getting the motivation that he never had before, and I see that 100%. I wanted to see him not. All right, I don't want to see people fail. I don't, because that's not the intent of the show in any way or form. But I do want to see the character struggle with the role, with the condition that he has. And I think that the only time we really see him struggle in any way or form is in that first episode. There's really no, other than him mentioning it in passing, like, I can't believe I did that. And then he looks up, but he did it with very, very much ease. Like, the character doesn't portray any type of emotion in his face when he's doing those type of obstacles that he didn't think that he would be able to do.
And sometimes and I know, I mean, and again, I'm never going to shut off my neurologic brain. I can't, right? Because it's what I do. So neurologically and psychologically, because I deal with neuroscience patients, you know, with these patients, this is part of what I do. I guess I see things from a point of view so differently, simply because I deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a person who's been literally sitting in the pocket of self-deprecation and self-devaluing because of that fear, the inhibitor, will oftentimes not connect to that moment of joy, that moment of happiness. They will not connect to that positive action because there's always a fear that it'll never happen again, that it was just a one-off. So I'm not at all thrown by the fact that he didn't keep having those moments of joy, because I'm not quite sure that he was ready to start having them.
I don't think
he does. Eventually, you start to see the, like, whoa, I did this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like in Kerblam, for instance.
Yes, exactly. You know, I was going to say in Kerblam.
Kerblam was like a perfect one, and in the battle, he actually does it there too, and he even does it in the Schrödinger conundrum.
Yeah.
He just does it a little bit differently, that's all. yeah, we could be your doulas. You know? I'm like, cool, we're two blokes, we could be your doulas. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I get what he's saying, yes. He's saying yes to something in this moment. Like, do you think that he would have ever said yes to any of those three situations I just named if these changes hadn't happened in his life? I mean, seriously, do you think so?
No, I don't.
No, because even in the first, I'm sorry, Louis, but
go ahead.
Even in the first, right, in the first episode when he's hesitant to touch the light thing, you know, which ends up being like Tim Shaw's something or other, but he's like, oh, well, I don't know if this is just me or, well, oh, what the heck, I'll just touch it. You know, and, you know, he's also found this after he threw the fit with his bike. So to me, it's kind of like, oh, well, oh, what the heck, I'll just do this. But it's not because it's like the same kind of risky, gutsy behavior as Yaz. It's just because he's like, whatever.
Well, touching, the thing is not, doesn't require coordination, and riding a bike does. And so does climbing a ladder, or so does working on a dashboard. So, like I kind of see the juxtaposition in that.
Yeah. And I don't want to focus in on the negative aspect of what.
No, it's not at all. It's good. It's good conversation, because I'm glad that we, it's like the blessing of having a group like this. We have different. We can bring these perspectives out. Not everyone gets to hear them then, and I'm good. I'm glad we're doing it this way.
A lot of that it falls on the failing of the director. That the director didn't exhibit to this actor, look, I need you to portray this in this way. Show me this emotion. Because, you're playing a character with a condition that you're not aware fully of. Like, no matter what you research and how much you really delve into, it's literally public television, guys. You got to remember that. So they're not doing like a full-on, full movie production that you could actually live with somebody that has the condition, or be able to do the research that these actors do in films, because they're not afforded that time to they're based off of the direction of a director.
No, good point.
And what they could read online. So the director should have had the wherewithal to actually go and do the research on that.
Well, they actually did with his dyspraxia, because this is actually a disorder that Chris's someone in Chris's closer family circle actually was dealing with. And so this is one of the reasons he actually put this condition as the one that Ryan was going to have. So he did have a live person helping them to make the decisions how they were going to do what they were doing. They actually had a consultant for this. This is why, maybe because I knew that, I wanted to look it up. I kind of give them some grace on it, because I do understand. I do understand that people would not, who were dealing with the same disability, may not have wanted to see it so obviously on the show, and maybe he was just being very respectful of that. But I don't know, right? So
but the thing is I made it a point to look at things, especially with ladders, because I knew it from the first episode. In the first episode, when he goes to climb up a ladder, he's not only unsure about climbing up the ladder, he has this face of kind of concern, and he has this face that changes throughout the episode. And then I never see that again in anything else that he does, and that's what I'm looking for. I was looking for some type of
but that's direction, like you said, totally.
And I didn't see that, and I thought that it did a disservice to the condition. And I think that people need to be aware that this is not a condition that could be easily solved. And I just think that we should pay homage to that, and really say, look, this is not how this condition is. It's not a treatable condition. This is a condition that a person has to live with for their whole life.
It could have come up, though. I hope so.
I hope so. I really do.
I think we'll give them some we'll give them some credence that they'll figure it out, as and that we will see it more, because there was just so much in this season, and so many characters, and so much things happening. I think maybe they can chill a little bit with the next season, and we actually get to see some more character development along the lines of what we're talking about. So I had read to you these two lines from an article, and I felt they really gave us a great springboard for us to look at the characters and why these characters came on as the companion. And it says, this is from Screen Rant. So it said, it was as much about the Doctor's friends as about, it said the premiere set the tone of the entire season. It was as much about the Doctor's friends as about the Time Lord herself. That's why so much of the opening sequence is spent exploring the lives of Ryan, Yaz, and Graham. And the title has a double meaning to it, too. That's the woman who fell to earth. And it doesn't just reference the loss of the Doctor's arrival on Earth, but points to the death of Grace, which is really the inciting incident of this entire season. And it's a strong, but not, albeit imperfect, episode. So do you feel that is that's the truth. That this, not just the first episode, but yes, 100% that the first episode laid out that we were going to be seeing the companion from a different perspective than we have in the past. Or do you think that is... No, what do you think?
I mean, sure. I mean, we have 3 companions. We normally have 1. So right there, it's different.
Yeah.
I think my expectation was, well, how are they going to balance all 3? And they didn't.
Nope, they did not.
But and so I was thinking, well, maybe they will in the next season. So, because I like to give benefit of the doubt. And if they don't do it again, then shame on them. But
and I think that the way that they balanced it, there is something to be desired, but also at the same time, it leaves that room for growth, and it leaves us to have a conversation like we're having right now as fans after we finish watching this season and see the story arc going on, which is what I love about Doctor Who, is that no matter what, even with characters that weren't fully developed, we're still having a full episode conversation, if not 2 episode conversation about what they did and the impact that they did on this season. And that's incredible in itself. And how many hours have we talked about them this season? Honestly.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, the whole time, I think that they were always part of every conversation.
Yeah.
So
that's countless hours right there that we've had a conversation. And that's what shows do. They're supposed to be entertaining, thought-provoking, and create a moral message. That's what Doctor Who thrives to do. So it does that. And it's very successful at it. Even in a season like this that is looked down upon by so many people, I don't see that. I see an enjoyable show. I see that it hit those 3 parameters and it nailed them. We're talking about it, and how many deep conversations did we go into and see so much more than we saw initially just by having a conversation with each other. And I think that's all in part to the companions and the Doctor and how they interacted with each other, how they were able to work with each other and learn from each other. That's
I would agree. That's very well said, Louis.
Very much so. It's a completely different dynamic than something that we've seen before, at least with the traveling TARDIS, because again, with Pertwee and even with Hartnell, we are treated to having multiple companions at a time that will last for a show or a couple shows at a time, but not that last for an entire season.
Right.
And, with the dynamic of UNIT, I think we had that opportunity. But again, that was a very static dynamic because they hadn't all been through grievous situations. You know what I'm saying? And they were all scientists, so they kind of had some predisposition to be science-y. So that kind of made sense. But not one of these companions have any of that predisposition in any way, shape, or form. Maybe Yaz, I don't know. But it's somewhat reminiscent to how we get Amy in the beginning. We literally get thrown into this entire season that is based on Amy and the crack in the wall. So, I mean, it's not that we haven't had this type of character. It's just never been more than 2, like you said. So that was Amy and Rory, of course. So
not in New Who anyway.
No, not New. No, this is New Who, like New York. So again, we'll go back to the opening sequence and the fact that the opening episodes, and I'm going to say the opening season is spent exploring the lives of our companions, and then connecting that to the Doctor and having the Doctor learn about who the Doctor is. Maybe it's just my take on it. I could be wrong.
I love how you did that. Meh.
But we see, I mean, a completely different Doctor this time. Even though, of course, Jodie embodies all of the other Doctors, I do feel like this is a new being. And how many of you miss the TARDIS as a companion?
I missed that. I wish that was
big time.
I really wish, but I think there's like more of that.
Yeah.
I see that happening more once Graham is grounded, and it's Ryan and Yaz, I think they're gonna go into hyperdrive and they're gonna take the millennials out and really like go out for a Cadillac ride. You know, it's really interesting.
That's pretty cool. That's an
They're
interesting
gonna take the youngsters
concept.
out. You
My
know,
brain is I told you you're in the old crowd now, Lewis. I am so sorry, but
I'm in that middle ground still. Just because I'm balding doesn't mean that I'm.
Oh my goodness. I really So I'm gonna do the last part that we talked about, which was from an episode which I don't love, but it was about the episode of course, arachnids, and I referenced it earlier. While this was another one and done episode, it was still one of the most important hours in the season 11's narrative arc. The return to Sheffield gave the Doctor's friends an opportunity to decide whether or not they wanted to be part of Team TARDIS in the first place. Because as we said at the beginning, the TARDIS pulled them in. They got pulled in. They got transported. It's not like they had a choice from the beginning, right? They got pulled into space. So, but here was their opportunity, all three of them, to make a willful choice to become Team TARDIS and name themselves. So what did you think about that moment and them becoming real companions at this point? And do you agree with that being an important moment?
Extremely.
Oh, yeah. I think Yaz even says, "We're with you," or something along those lines, where all of a sudden we kind of see that shift of, yep, we want to go on these adventures, and yep, you know, we want to go with you. And they're kind of on, I think they're on that hill, right? And they're kind of just talking. I think it's towards the middle of the episode where they say that?
It's the end. It's the end of the episode.
At the end?
Yeah,
it's at the end.
Yeah.
Because she went out to get the whatever it was, milk or bread or whatever, and all of a sudden we realized that they had made a pact and we didn't know about it with each other, a silent pact of some kind to meet up at the TARDIS when she was about to leave, when the Doctor was going to leave.
Right.
And she was like, okay, let's get a proper goodbye. And they're like, nah, we're going to go with you. You know?
Right.
She's like, but you do realize what's going to happen, right? I can't promise you anything. And she gives them that whole little edict like a charter.
And I like that.
Charter.
I think the Doctor's finally, like we mentioned at the beginning of honestly Doctor Who in Review, we brought this up immediately, was that the Doctor has gone through all the steps of grieving, and I think that now the Doctor is reborn into this Doctor, but the Doctor is more aware of the impact that the character has done on so many people's lives, destroying them, helping them. But the only time you see anything is the negative, because that's what we remember as humans. That's just our prerogative. That's what we remember are the bad things, not necessarily always the good things. And we don't see the impact that we've had in a positive way on people all the time. And I don't think the Doctor fully sees that. And all the Doctor sees is the negative impact. And it's like, now it's finally like the Doctor's giving the warning, like, look, you have to understand what you're getting into. And are you okay doing this? Are you sure? I'm not going to make that decision for you anymore. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, that's a show in and of itself for Lewis. No, it is. It really is. You should write that one down. No, really, because I'd love to ponder that a little bit more, I think, actually. Okay, now you have my brain on a tangent. Good gracious. Okay.
When don't I do that? Come on now.
Why don't you do that to me? You know my brain by now. It just goes off in like left field.
I always leave these these little nuggets at the end of the episode.
So and one thing we didn't do, and we'll just touch on very quickly as we get ready to wrap up, is the story arcs, because we talked about what we were wanting to learn about more. And I know we need to go way more in depth on the things that did not happen that we missed, the misses versus the successes. But the story arcs, do we feel like we had story arcs with these companions? Okay, so we did Graham, we did Ryan, but as companions to each other, do you feel that their story arcs and their connectivity makes sense as a team?
I think it's weird, the dynamic that they did in this episode. I think that it was Graham and Ryan and Ryan and Yaz. Yaz and Graham didn't have a dynamic, really. There was barely any interaction, if any at all, really, besides like minor moments and stuff like that. And then obviously the Doctor with each of them, but there was no dynamic amongst the companions. Like there was no all three of them interacting with each other. It was always Ryan and Yaz, or Ryan and Graham. So Ryan was the centerpiece, even though his character wasn't fully fleshed out, which is weird. But
I'm gonna respectfully disagree. I think it was highly fleshed out. I think, and you know how I feel on the perspective of Ryan, that I think they've done a fabulous job between him and Graham and giving us a very strong full circle on them. But I think that's an interesting point as well. I think, okay, what do you think, Molly? I don't want to keep talking. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I kind of agree with both of you. I know that sounds lame, but
No,
I mean, there's points on both sides of that. Right?
So we all agree that Yaz is definitely not fleshed out, and at some point in life, we have to figure out are Graham and Yaz going to have their own adventure together? Because if this team is going to continue, well, that has to happen.
No, I see her with Ryan. I don't see her with Graham.
Yeah, see that, but that's interesting that we already automatically go to that. Well, of course, because they're mates, and they've been mates since they were in elementary school. So that makes sense to everybody. But that can't.
I gotta throw in a Donna line. Do you want to mate, or are you my mate?
Yes, of course. You mate, or you want a mate?
Well, because
gotta clarify that one. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Lewis has a point that maybe Graham will stay home, a la like Amy and Rory episodes where the dad or the old man was there too. I think maybe we see him in one episode and they've traveled from somewhere, but maybe at the end of the first episode in the second season of this Doctor, maybe he does stay. Maybe he does stay home. Maybe he's had it with traveling in space and he's just there as a ancillary mentory type character.
Mm-hmm. But a very strong one, because he already understands what they've been through. And
then maybe that's why they made him such a fleshed out character.
Exactly.
So if they do that, then we're not lacking with Graham.
So the actor is not meant to stay forever. He was always not going to stay. He was going to be a main character, and the choice to continue on through the seasons was something that's only unknown to them. I cannot imagine that they could possibly have moved ahead with Ryan's character without Graham, and then Graham and Ryan's dynamic being fleshed out as much as it's been. So there is no way to move into the next season with that having a good, strong foothold. But we can move into the next season without knowing as much about Yaz as we'd like to. I think maybe they purposefully left it up in the air. Maybe I'm hoping. I'm giving them a lot of credence on this one. They left us wanting on purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It would have been impossible to go on with even worse impossible than what Lou was saying, to go on with Ryan's character if we hadn't had some of this resolution that we've had between Ryan and Aaron and Ryan and Graham, of course. So, so yeah, I think it would have been impossible to go on to the next season without what's been done being done. Whereas with Yaz, it was still okay. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's why they went with it like they did. I don't know. It's just my thoughts. So story arcs, we've already talked about things we're looking forward to seeing. We definitely need to see the Doctor more involved in terms of the sci-fi, and then bringing them into the alien worlds a lot more, I think, because that's still
a lot more.
Yeah, we really we need to see it. So.
And I want to see the TARDIS more as a companion.
Oh my God, yes, I miss it. I miss it terribly. And
well, it was like, why couldn't the Doctor get a hold of the TARDIS, right? I mean, normally they have a bit more control. It's like, well, where is it?
Yeah, I miss her a lot. I think she's a wonderful character, and
oh God, I mean, the TARDIS is the reason we have Doctor Who. So it was really weird. And yes, Ghost Monument, cool, all that. But I'm like, give her back the full body of being, the primary characters. I love the cheesy way that they have the companions get lost. That's always a cool part of the whole thing. So it's fun. You want the fun. Definitely want that. Yeah, definitely want the fun. That's important for me too. Okay. So Louis, you're wrapped up. You're pretty good.
I think Molly, I said my piece.
Cool. Molly, did you? And I think I did too, basically.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, me too. I think we're gonna discover a little bit more of the nitty-gritty and the nuance of our millennial characters once with our next episode, to get a much better input in terms of the cultural and the societal, I guess, influences and impact of these three characters. There's so much to talk about. I cannot wait to delve more into the cultural significance of bringing on such a diverse Team TARDIS.
So, Nisha, are you calling me old too? Come on, man. Come on.
I did not do it. And I am trying to rap, Mr.
Would you like to be? Would you like to be part of our exclusive club?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm good with that.
I think that we are a fantabulous exclusive club. So
absolutely,
yes, we are.
You should be so lucky.
That's right.
I'm not ready to call myself the older generation yet. It's like when you said that, I was like, ooh, that hurt. The old man throwing something at the youngsters on the lawn. Get out of my lawn, Sonny. That type of thing. I'm not there yet. Come on, guys.
Oh my God.
A couple more years.
Well, I mean,
I got the anger part, but not the throwing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, believe me, if the shoe fits, no. Oh God, I was having my serious rap moment, and you have to go poke.
When do I not
know you? Okay, so basically, no, honestly, like the next one is what we were looking forward to the next conversation. It's about the social and cultural influences of these characters and bringing on this diverse cast, which will be featuring Joe at Life Into the West, Harrison D'Orso, and another one of us, Lovelies. All right, so we're going to go ahead and sign off tonight from Doctor Who in Review. Molly B. Marcus, who you can find on Instagram.
And of course, part of all of the lovely that is on Man Bites Media and There's a Geek.
There's a Geek, yes. Oh my God, what we're doing on DG is like amazing. We're doing our series on Time Lord, Wizard, or both, right?
Yes.
That was pretty awesome, which we did with Harrison D'Orso. So can't wait to keep going with that one. And Louis Lacow.
And you could check out everything on Man Bites Media, not only on Doctor Who in Review, but Man Bites Retro and Man Bites Film. And you could check out all that on any of your podcast feeds. Just look under Man Bites Media, or you could go to manbitesfilm.com, and we have a link to all your potential podcast sites through there as well.
Yay! And of course, I am Nisha M, your geek mom from Diversely Geek, joined by Joe at Life Into the West. And you can find us on pretty much every social media. Well, almost all social media sites. Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter. I'm forgetting YouTube. Good gracious me, I'm getting so old. Oh, Instagram. And I will be loading, with the help of the wonderful Louis, a whole series of YouTube videos that we have to put up for you for my year in review and being on the con scene and the con circuit, because I did spend an entire year on the con circuit, and I'm trying to put them into a viewable format so people could see what it looked like to do that over a year. So that was, it's going to be really interesting when we do get it up there. And then we should be having another live stream coming up within the next few weeks as Joe goes into her new series that she's going to be doing, Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a year in review. And then we have a lot of offerings on our podcast, which our regular team members are Molly B. Marcus, Joe at Life Into the West, Ada Zarate, Cynthia Kirkland, and then we have a lot of featured guests coming up over the next few months. So, and you can find us on podcast Diversely Geek Discusses on pretty much most of the podcast sites out there, mainly iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and a couple more. Alexa, I think, too, is coming up. And you can find us and our original article content at diverselygeek.org. Diverselygeek.org. All right, my friends, have a great week, and I'm going to sign off and wish you all much love.
Much love.
Much love.